We move on now. As the world watches Gaza with outrage, authorities in Kinshasa are raising alarm over what they call a worsening human rights crisis in the east. Now, the Congolese government is accusing the M23 rebels of carrying out abductions, forced recruitment of young people, and widespread abuses against civilians in North and South Kivu provinces. And despite ceasefire agreements signed in Doha, officials say violations continue, with rebels establishing parallel administrations and tightening their grip on occupied territories. So, today on the conversation, I'm joined by Dr. Alex Ntung, independent researcher and consultant at Canterbury, England. Thank you so much, Dr. Ntung, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, now, could there be any truth in DRC's accusation of rights abuses against the M23 rebels?
The investigation by you and a group of experts has produced a report, but the report is controversial, is contentious. Its investigation seems to be limited. There was not a team on the ground. They have not spoken to people on the ground to confirm the allegations. Really, there is a problem with the statistics that have been provided, because not any body found. There wasn't anybody on the ground. There seem to be really questionable statistics that have been shared, but also really there is also a question of ethics in reporting and researching violence, because they talk about Hutu people who've been killed. What kind of methodology they have used to determine who's a victim, the victim's ethnicity. So this report really often on the DRC have an agenda. There is a kind of a culture of trying to make sure that these international pressure groups are not asked to leave the DRC. They try to kind of provide some kind of bias and partial reports. So there is also selective nature of this report, because there is so much been going on in the DRC. You have 250 armed groups supported by the government committing atrocities everywhere, from Ituri to South Kivu. But the report has focused only on North Kivu. There isn't anything mentioned about the high plateau of South Kivu, where for the last 9 years there have been ethnic cleansing going on. There isn't much mentioned about the Codeco violence in Ituri area, but also Islamic group called ADF in Beni area that have been committing atrocities every day. But there isn't really focus on those type of groups. And the Wazalendo, which are really supported by the government themselves. This Wazalendo group they're really kind of labeled as resistant groups, but the government has somehow came up with an idea of making them reservists as part of the army. And these are really very, very abusive armed groups. And if you can think about it, 250 armed groups that's really supported by the government to commit atrocities in different parts of the region. But the focus has been really mainly on M23 activities in North Kivu. That's what I can answer for your first question.
Okay, so I understand that part. I mean, and of course, this is the first time that the rebel group would be accused of age-long atrocities. Even Amnesty International and the European Union corroborated part of the stories about this violation of rights. But it's like nothing is being done to actually probe these allegations. And from your comment, it seems it's quite hard to go to these areas of conflicts and get the information. Does it actually have to do with how volatile these areas are to actually get the empirical evidence as to the allegations leveled against these rebel groups?
That's right. It's I think to be able to obtain objective evidence, you have to be on the ground. I do research conflict areas, and I try to access those areas to be able to speak to people, to be able to speak to internally displaced people. Such method would be a way that you can be able to get really empirical evidence, so really objective evidence. At the moment, we are bombarded by UN reports or human rights reports, and often those groups are not on the ground to be able to back up their claims. And this selective nature of reporting, which I've mentioned earlier, where the government itself is not is not asked in terms of their accountabilities to protect the civilians who are at risks. And by protecting, I'm talking about equity in really protecting everybody. The government has been really almost kind of like acting as a rebel group itself, arming some militias to commit extreme atrocities in certain areas literally because of our populism. These are people we don't want, therefore we can armed groups to commit atrocities against them. Those are type of things that should be also looked into by this report.
Okay, so we also understand the fact that most of the accusations have come from Kinshasa towards Rwanda, towards M23 rebels, all other, of course, rebel groups. We've not seen that much accusations coming from the other end. So that begs the question as to who is actually willing to see peace reign and an end to all this conflict. So do actions perceived, as repeated violations of the ceasefire agreement, of course, brokered in Doha, prove that M23 has no actual interest in this peace? Is that a script that is playing out?
Well, the peace process has been going on from Rwanda, from Nairobi, and then Qatar and America. They became interested in really mediating this conflict and bringing everybody at the table of negotiation. M23 has been interested. Categorically, they did not want to engage with it. But really, on the ground, there is no difference. There's no to continue its activities against the rebels, and especially against people in South Kivu. So really, while the talks are going on in Doha, there isn't any difference that you can see on the ground.
Well, I actually thought that part of the ceasefire agreement was for M23 and all other rebel groups to disarm and retreat. Is that an impossible task?
There are preconditions for that. For example, one of the principles of agreement was really to release prisoners of our physical futures. The DRC government is detaining more than 700 people for no crimes just because of how they look. Simply because they are Tutsis, they are being detained or they've been imprisoned. So M23 has been asking the release of those prisoners who have not committed any crimes. Simply they're looking because of how they look. So there are some other conditions that have been laid down in Doha, and all those conditions, none has been really addressed. So before they move on to start kind of like talking about peace, there were some conditions, some environment that have been established for peace to emerge.
Okay, well, interestingly, even as we, Dr. Ntung, even as we accuse M23 and all the rebel groups for perpetuating crimes and violations against human rights in the East, we'll still hear of the fact that it seems as though government officials and government military arms are also part of this violation of rights. And that draws the question as to who actually intentionally, wants peace to reign, wants these conflicts to come to an end in the East?
I think we need to start thinking about homegrown solutions in Africa, homegrown solutions. We cannot continue to expect solutions from abroad, from Washington, from New York, from Brussels, from Paris. Regional mechanisms have to step in to be able to resolve conflict on the African continent. Same as West Africa, same as Central Africa. There have to be some mechanisms where African countries can come together to be able to address these issues that have been going on. DRC has been going on, the conflict has been going on for the last 30 years. This conflict, government is responsible because it has failed to provide, justice for all. There is a culture of populism where every time during elections, you have to show how much you hate certain kind of people so they can be able to be elected. Such culture has been going on for a long time. UN has intervened for the last 20 years with over 20,000 troops. This is the largest UN troops in history. They've been spending $1.5 billion a year, biggest expenditure of UN in history. But despite that, has been brought to there's no justice in Congo. In Congo. In fact, actually, it's ironic. By the time you came to Congo, it was about armed. From that time to now, there are over 250 armed groups. So it is quite a paradox. On one hand, you have intervention from UN, and yet there is no peace. So, number one, the government of Congo is responsible to bring justice to all, to bring peace to all. Government of Congo act as a rebellion, as a rebel government. So is one of a really almost kind of no state actors. And UN intervention too really would probably prefer that the conflict continues. It sounds kind of a serious accusation, but you would question so much why they have failed. Research shows that the UN has failed to bring peace in the DRC. This hence why I'm talking about African countries to work with the government of Congo and to make the government of Congo responsible and accountable to all human rights abuses. First of all, why armed groups emerge? Why M23 emerge? This is the second time that the M23 has emerged. It was defeated in 2013. If it was defeated, why is it coming back 10 years later? That's really a big question to kind of bring the issue back to the government of Congo and ask accountability and responsibility to be able to protect.
Dr. Ntung, you seem to be accusing DR Congo of fueling the violence in the East. But, most of the stories that we've gotten so far has always pointed accusing finger at Rwanda, saying the Rwandan government has been the one sponsoring the M23 rebels and causing the instability that we've seen in that particular, conflicted zone. So how is it that you are bringing the DR Congo, that is the Kinshasan government, into focus as the main promulgator of the crisis that have played out in a couple of years?
Good. I think there is a geopolitical issue that we need to be talking about, especially in West Africa. There's a kind of one line of the one single story of what's going on in Congo. There have been many countries that have been involved in the DRC. Those countries have we don't talk about those countries. Angola has been involved, Namibia has been involved, Zimbabwe has been involved, Uganda has been involved, Burundi is involved until now with about 20,000 soldiers on DRC territory. Rwanda has been involved during different rebellions, and many other countries have been involved. There was a time when there was about 12 countries were involved in the DRC. Rwanda is not the only country that really should be reported about. Rwanda is the consequences of security issues that are really caused by the DRC government. You have to remember that DRC is the size of Western Europe. It's a huge country. Just to east in Goma is a distance equal to London and Moscow. Just imagine how big that country is. Now, if it's a country that's not well governed, is stateless, is lawless, is not responsible to assure security around its territories, then it becomes a liability for neighboring countries. If it is hosting rebellions that really might be a security threat for other countries, then really that's how other countries get involved. Uganda is at the moment involved. There are troops in Ituri. You don't see report being talked about on Uganda. Why Rwanda is being talked about? Because it is part of a political populism in the DRC. In Kinshasa, if you say that Uganda is attacking us, you won't be popular. You can't get support. But if you say Rwanda is attacking us, you will get a lot of support because of ethnocentric issues that's going on in the region about Tutsis and versus other people. So that's where we lack really an understanding of connection between Rwanda and the DRC. It is the only interest.
Dr. Ntung.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Even as we wrap up on this conversation, just one more question. Just one more question. Now, earlier on you said that you need other African governments to work with DR Congo to seek accountability and to also help them in dealing with the crisis with the rebels. Now, I'm wondering, in what sense or in what light are you hoping that African countries will be able to step in to help DR Congo resolve its issues with these rebel groups? Because these crises have gone on for over 2 decades with series of peace deals brokered, and those peace deals have been broken.
Okay. African countries understand the underlying causes of conflict. They understand the underlying factors of conflict. You will hear from who's been trying to resolve Congo. You can see how superficial and simplistic he is in terms of understanding the M23 is coming back, has returned the last 3 years. Africans understand the African identities. The politics of ethnocentrism, they do understand the local races. So that's why African regional mechanism should be really more efficient to be able to resolve those issues. African Union has been very weak. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we hope that there will be some sort of consensus on the part of those who might be willing to pull their weight into this conversation and see what can be done to put an end to this crisis that has actually devastated DRC. Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Ntung, independent researcher and consultant at Canterbury in England. It was nice talking to you.